Hello! So today I thought I would do a really fun little bookshelf tour, but go over all of the books that I haven't read. So this is a little embarrassing because, of course, I have a lot of unread books, but I think it'll be fun because I think most people who are avid readers have tons of unread books. And I think, you know, that there is something to say about people who like to read books and people who also like to collect and, you know, hoard more books for the future that they would like to read at some point. So these books are books that I've gotten probably in the last few years, if not longer, and they are books that I do want to read. I just have to get around to them. So they will be read. There might be some on here that I will probably never read, and I will probably unhaul some of those, some older ones. But for the most part, these are all books that I would like to read, and I thought it would be kind of fun to show you my bookshelf in my room. This bookshelf is not very aesthetic. I was going to kind of organize it and make it pretty for the video, but then I was like, why? Let's just make it a realistic bookshelf tour just to show you what it looks like day to day. So I have a toddler, so any shelves that are within her reach down below usually have toys, her books, or things that I don't care as much about. But the higher up shelves are the ones that I kind of use. So I was thinking we would just go through this side of my shelf, which is my unread side, and then I can give you like a brief look at the other side, which is mostly read books. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so now we are over here. I'm kind of playing with the natural light in my bedroom since I don't have great lighting in here. Just kind of hope that the lighting is not going to go in and out. So we're going to start here on this shelf. I basically have 3 large shelves of unread, and then I have a few in the office that I'll also share that are like newer unreads. Actually, I have a little bit up here. They're mostly coffee table books. I have a really cool Paul McCartney coffee table book called The Lyrics, and it's a compilation of basically every song that he's ever written with the lyrics and the meaning or the thought behind it when he wrote it, including pictures, and it's a really cool book. And then I have some Beatles, George Harrison, other coffee table books that I've had for ages. And then I have 2 of these kind of like special edition Jane Austen. I've read Pride and Prejudice. I have not read Sense and Sensibility, so that is definitely one unread book there. And then I have a really cool version of The Hobbit that I got on a really great sale, I think on Book Outlet, and it is an illustrated version. So it has like J.R.R. Tolkien's, I almost said J.K. Rowling, J.R.R. Tolkien's illustrations that he drew himself. So that's a really cool version. I have not read The Hobbit in its entirety, so it's definitely a book I have to get to. That would be an unread. And then we have this big chunky boy, The Will of the Many, which is on my end of the year TBR. I have to read this book by end of the year, but I'm just getting the courage to, 1, read such a big book, but 2, I know that I'm probably going to really like it. And you know, when you kind of like push off books that you know you're going to like, I don't know why, but that's one of them. Okay, so now we're on this shelf. I'm just going to kind of go through, I may talk about them, I may not, but I'm just going to kind of share what I have here. So the first big book we have here is Justin Cronin's The Ferryman. The idea of this book was really fascinating to me. I think it just came out last year, and it is about a group of survivors on a hidden island utopia where the truth isn't what it seems. So it seems like these people go off and they go to pass, but then they find out something's going on with those people that went to pass, and there's something nefarious going on. I did start reading it, and then I think I was in the middle of like a million other books, and then this one was the one that kind of fell off. I do want to go back to read this one. It was kind of like a soft DNF, so I will get back to this one. And I haven't read anything from this author. I also have his book, The Passenger, as well to read, which I will share later. And then we have the infamous Faybound. This one had kind of some mixed reviews, so I am interested to get to this one by the end of the year. And then we have Berry Pickers. I've heard a lot of good things about this one, a lot of good things recently, so excited for that one. I have Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait. Another book that I've heard great things about, I really enjoyed Maggie O'Farrell's Hamnet, and I've heard this one is just as good. So I'm really excited to read that one. And then I have The People in the Trees. The premise of this book really interested me, and then I just never got around to reading it. Disquieting yet thrilling, The People in the Trees is an anthropological adventure story with a profound and tragic vision of what happens when cultures collide. And this is Hanya Yanagihara's debut. Sorry, I'm probably butchering their name, but this is the same author as A Little Life. I haven't read A Little Life, but I think this was their first book. So I am excited to get to this one. I mean, I'm going to be excited to get to all of these, to be honest, or I wouldn't have bought them. Next is The Beekeeper of Aleppo. Then I have the second book in the Poppy Wars trilogy, The Dragon Republic. I read the first one and enjoyed it. I just haven't gotten around to this one. I have Colson Whitehead's The Nickel Boys. Sorry, I thought that was all going to follow me. I haven't read any Colson Whitehead, so this one sounded the most interesting to me, so I am excited to get into this one eventually. The Island of the Sea Women. This is a UK cover, which I really like it. And then I have Shuggie Bane. This sounds like a really tragic, sad coming of age story, and I do like those kinds of books. So I heard this one is a must read. Then I have Jane Austen's this keeps scaring me. And then I have Jane Austen's Persuasion. Haven't read that one. And then I have Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall. So I really want to read this trilogy. I heard this is like the historical fiction of all historical fictions. And I have her second book below. So I have the first two. I just need to dive in. This book, I really, really hope that I can get to this year. Because I do enjoy a historical fiction. And then the next couple books coming up are books that are on my end of the year TBR that are from my other video that I will link so that you can see that if you would like to go back and watch that. I have My Brilliant Friend. This just listed as #1 on the New York Times 100 Best Books of the 21st Century. It also ranked pretty high in the like the public vote one. So I do want to get to this one. I read, you can see a little bit, I read up until page 76. It wasn't gripping me when I read it. But I think once I kind of get through the slow start, I think it'll really grow on me. So I am dedicated to at least reading this first one. I know it's a quartet, and I know people who read the whole quartet love it. So I want to at least get through this one and then kind of make a decision if I want to keep reading them. Then I have The Secret History. I feel like I'm going to probably read this around fall, winter time. I still have not read this one, and this is like a cult classic, so have to get to that one. And then I have The Midnight Library. I feel like a lot of people's opinions have changed on this one as of late. I feel like it was a booktube darling a few years ago, and now people don't like it as much, so we'll see. Then I have Red Rising. Same thing with this one. I started reading it. I don't think I was in the mood. It was kind of hard to follow, but I heard it is a little slow in the beginning, like the first 100 pages, and then once you get through that, things start coming together. So I do have to get to this one because this is another really big fantasy series. And then I have One Day. Need to read One Day. Then I have How to Pronounce Knife. This is a bunch of short stories, I think, about immigration and cultures kind of colliding. At least that's what my memory is from it. That could be totally wrong. But I do want to get to this one, and it is a short one, so I think I can. I have The Reader. I actually got this at my library book sale. I saw the movie with Kate Winslet a few years ago, really liked it, so I would like to read the book. I have Banana Yoshimoto's The Premonition, Sue Monk Kidd's The Invention of Wings. I think she wrote Secret Life of Bees, if I'm not mistaken, and I do remember liking that one when I read it years and years ago. Now these two, I fell in love with Hope and When Women Were Dragons. These were kind of random Barnes & Noble's pickups for me. I haven't really heard any discourse about them. I haven't really heard anybody talk about it, if they like it or don't like it. So these two I do have to get to. They sounded interesting at the time, and they seem like they're pretty easy read, if you know what I mean. Like, they don't seem like they're going to be dense reads. So I definitely want to get to these and see what they're all about. I then have Book Talk Darling Powerless. I still have not gotten to Powerless, and I know the second one has come out, but Then I've also heard some things where people don't like it because it's a ripoff of Hunger Games, so who knows? I do want to read it though, so we'll get to that one. And then I have Wool, which is book 1 in the Silo series. This is a sci-fi. It's also an Apple TV series that I have not seen yet, but I want to. The premise sounded really interesting. It's like a dystopian story about how all these people live in this like silo building, and like the world outside is like toxic, so they have to live in this silo, and like things go wrong or things start happening. So sounds really interesting. It's a 3-book series. And then we have Legendary. This is a YA beloved book. I don't think I've seen anybody read this book and not like it, so I definitely want to read it. And then I have Beyond That, The Sea. I think this is a historical fiction. I think it's a World War II historical fiction. Then I have The Gilead. I know this is probably going to be a denser, slower read, so I'm kind of finding time for when I'm in the mood for that, but I've heard this book is just beautiful. And then I have Rachel Cusk's Outline. This is the first of her Outline trilogy. I know she kind of writes differently and is kind of doing something different in the writing space, so I haven't read any of her works, so I'm very excited to get to this one. And then the last 2 on this shelf, they couldn't be more different. I have The White Album by Joan Didion. I think this is just another collection of essays. I've only read her Year of Magical Thinking, so I want to read more. So this is my next Didion book that I'll read. And then I have Chloe Gong's Immortal Longings. So yeah, so that is that shelf. I wasn't going to count because I didn't want to know how many unreads I had, but I have a morbid curiosity to know, so I'm going to count. So we have 34. Let's move on to this lovely shelf up next. Okay, so let's do the second shelf. I have Betty Smith's Tomorrow Will Be Better. I know her A Tree Grows in Brooklyn book is really popular. I have this one. I've heard this one is also good. So when I'm kind of ready for like a slow, nice read, I think this is what I'll pick up. Then I have Elizabeth Gilbert's The Signature of All Things. I have Sarah Winman's Still Life. I feel like I've been really excited about this one more recently because I've been seeing more about it. It is a historical fiction. I think it's World War II as well, but I know people really, really love this one. So I have to get to this one. It was a Good Morning America pick too. Then I have Boy Swallows Universe. This one just sounded interesting to me. I think it's another coming of age story, and I thought the cover was pretty cool. Then I have Inkblood Sister Scribe. I saw this on a lot of people's end of the year list for 2023, and it sounded really interesting, so I just need to get to it. Another Good Morning America pick. And then I have Cursed Bread. This was also kind of like a cool cover. And I have The Apology, really cool cover actually. I've heard kind of mediocre things about this one. I think that's what's kind of pushed me off from reading it, but I will read it. John Gwynn's The Shadow of the Gods. As you guys probably know, I've been getting into more fantasy, and John Gwynn is a very popular fantasy writer. He has a ton of different series. This one sounded the most interesting to me, so I picked the first book up. But I feel like I'm in the middle of a lot of series right now, and I want to kind of finish those off before I start this one. And it's definitely a big boy, so I think I'll start this one once I've kind of closed out a couple others. Not a Happy Family. I know this is a pretty popular thriller writer. I think I'm kind of getting out of my thriller era. I don't know if I will get to this one or if I've kind of grown out of it. But it is always nice to have a thriller on your bookshelf for when you're in the mood. So maybe I will be in the mood later this year, probably maybe around Halloween. Then I have Oh Beautiful. I haven't heard a lot about this book. I saw it at Target quite a bit because it was a Target book club pick, but it did sound really interesting to me. So I'm wondering where the audience is for this book. Like I said, I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Then I have 2 Ruth Ozeki books. The first one being The Book of Form and Emptiness and A Tale for the Time Being. I have not read any Ruth Ozeki, but I have a feeling I'm going to really like her. So I picked up these both because I couldn't decide between the 2, and they both sounded really interesting. So those 2. Then I have Beasts of a Little Land, The Memoirs of Stockholm Sven, The Wolf Den, which I'm really excited about. I've been hearing more and more about this just recently. It is a trilogy, and it is a historical fiction, and I heard people are really, really loving it. So I think I need to find time this year to read this one. Then I have Night Road by Kristen Hanna. I think my mother-in-law gave this to me. I really enjoyed Fourth Winds. Nightingale. And then I'm probably, I know I'm unpopular opinion. I did not like The Great Alone. So interested to see where I fall with this one. Okay, so this was A Pain Go By. It is Jane Smiley's Early Warning. This is actually the second book in a trilogy of hers. And I picked it up because I am really interested in reading Jane Smiley. I have another one of hers down below. And it was a first edition signed copy. And I was like, I think it was like $3. So I was like, I will pick it up for the future because I think it's really cool that it's signed. So that's that one. Then I have An Ocean of Minutes. I've had this one for ages. I really probably need to reevaluate if I'm going to read this book. Anthony Doerr's Cloud Cuckoo Land. He's the same author of All the Light You Cannot See. I enjoyed All the Light We Cannot See, so I'm looking forward to reading this because I did like his writing. And then I have two Kazuo Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day and When We Are Orphans. I know this one is really critically acclaimed, so have to get to that one. I have Haruki Murakami's Kafka on the Shore. I've had this one for quite some time. I've kind of read a lot of recent discourse about how he doesn't write female characters well and just some maybe problematic things, so kind of put me off on wanting to read this. But I still am. I read a little bit. I read most of Norwegian Wood in my early 20s. And so I am still curious about his work. So I may still read this one, although I'm not sure if I have as much motivation as I once did. And then I have Stephen King's Billy Summers. I have read quite a bit of Stephen King, and I heard this is one of his more popular modern era books. So excited for that one. Cormac McCarthy's Child of God. I enjoyed The Road from him, and it's a pretty small little book. I have Love Medicine. I think this was really popular maybe in the early 2000s or 90s. Oh, 80s. So I feel like I've been trying to read books that were popular maybe when I was too young to read them. So this one's definitely before my time. So it sounded really interesting and I want to get to it. And this author I haven't read a lot of, and I want to, kind of get to this author. And then I have a Penguin Classics version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I've only seen the movie, so would like to see how the book goes. And then lastly on this shelf, I have The Interpreter of Maladies. This is, I think, a bunch of short stories. Yeah, short stories, and it's the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. I've heard it's really good. Geraldine Brooks, People of the Book. I know a lot of people are reading her book right now, The Horse, or Horse. I actually picked up this one quite a while ago. So this is also, I think this author has written a couple Pulitzer Prize books. So I am excited to read this one. And then lastly, I have Crooked Kingdom, which is the second book in the Six of Crows duology. And I read Six of Crows earlier this year, so I enjoyed it, and I'm excited to finish out with the second one. Let's do our grand total for this shelf. 29. Okay, next shelf. So this one, we are getting down quite low, and we're going to do the last shelf of Unread on this side, so let's get into it. I have The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, The Night Tiger, which was really popular, I feel like a couple years ago, so I do really want to read this one still. The Lost Daughters of China, nonfiction. Then I have Dragonwick, which was kind of a random pickup for me. I think it's a Regency book. I do like my Regency era novels, and this one was one that I hadn't heard of, but I think it had decent reviews, so we'll see. I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes. Really random pickup. I got this quite a while ago. I don't know if I'm still interested in reading this one or not, but I know it was really popular and they made a show or a movie about it, but it is really big, so I have to have a motivation. So we'll see. And then I have my other Jane Smiley book. I think this is a standalone of hers called A Thousand Acres. It is a retelling somewhat of King Lear. And it's about this family that takes over this farm. So really interested in this one. This one was also the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. Once Upon a River. Can't remember too much about that one. And then Take Me Apart, another thriller that I got that I may be out of my thriller era. So this may be unhauled. We'll see. Or maybe I'll just have a thriller Halloween week or Halloween month and just read all of those, which maybe would be fun. Because maybe I'll find some surprises in there. And then I have Falling Leaves by Adeline Yen Ma. I remember reading her book Chinese Cinderella when I was a kid and really loving it, and it was really, really sad. And I think this is the like adult version memoir of it. So I am interested in reading this. I actually picked this up just this week at the library book sale for like 50 cents. Then I have a stack of Jeff Vandermeer. This is Ambergris. This is a compilation of 3 novels: City of Saints and Madmen, Shriek and Afterward, and Finch. So there's that one. Then I have Born and Dead Astronauts, which is a really cool cover. I finished his Annihilation trilogy, the Southern Reach trilogy this year. I was kind of let down by the second and third book. I know he's actually coming out with the 4th book in the fall, so I'll probably end up reading that. But I think I kind of needed a break from him. Then I have Buried Beneath the Baobab Tree. This one I got a long time ago. I don't know if I will be getting to this one, and if I still have the motivation to read this one, maybe in Unhaul. I'll have to kind of look at it again. If You Leave Me, Human Acts, which was a Korean translated work, was pretty popular when it came out in Korea, so I was interested in it since I do enjoy translated fiction from Korea. And then I had Hilary Mantel's Bring Up the Bodies. I believe this is the second one after Wolf Hall. You Were Always Mine. I actually won this in a Goodreads giveaway, so people actually win those because I won this one. It sounds really sweet. I think this one came out maybe end of last year. So I really want to get to this one. Then I have this cute little copy of Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. This book, Queens of Fenburn, random pickup for me. Haven't heard anything about this book. I think at the time it sounded interesting, and I was trying to do one of those like buy 2 get 1 free or something. So I don't know. I kind of have to reevaluate if I do want to read this one. The Girl Left Behind. I don't know if I really have the urge to read these books anymore. I saw the movie Me Before You, kind of know the premise. I wanted to read the book, but I just don't know if I have that urge anymore. And then A Passage North. Then I have this really, really tiny copy of Don Quixote. It's like Bible thin pages. I did not know I was buying a mini copy like this when I bought it, so we'll probably not be reading this version when I do someday get around to this classic. The Girl with the Pearl Earring. I enjoyed this movie, so I wanted to read the book. Lying in Wait, another one of those thrillers that I just may never get to. Rabid, A Cultural History of the World's Most Diabolical Virus. I think this is about rabies, if I remember correctly. It's a nonfiction, so I do enjoy nonfiction. Then the last stack of books on this shelf, I have Alice Hoffman's The Marriage of Opposites, Ann Patchett's State of Wonder. I am an Ann Patchett fan, so I'm really excited to keep reading more of her. I had Commonwealth there, and then I think I also have Bel Canto, but it is downstairs, but just pretend that's on the shelf. Brave New World, a classic that I really want to read this year. And then I have The Forger's Spell, which is a nonfiction, a true story of Vermeer, Nazis, and the greatest art hoax of the 20th century. So sounds really interesting. Fuzz by Mary Roach. I really like Mary Roach nonfiction. She just does really interesting takes on weird science. The books that I've read from her are Stiff, about what happens with human cadavers, how they're used in science. Bonk, which is science and sex. And then I think it was Space Mars, something about space, and it was like all these things you don't think about space travel, like going to the bathroom with zero gravity, like really weird things. So was really excited to find this one. This one is actually at my library book sale as well for like $1, and its tagline is When Nature Breaks the Law. So I think this is where people and nature kind of cross paths and how that's handled. So let's count these ones. 30. So I think we're at 94, getting close to 100. I think I probably have 100, if not a little bit more than 100. So let's flip on to this other side. I have a few other random books scattered in this middle shelf and this other shelf to share. Okay, so now we're in this middle shelf. This is a mix of Unread, some books of my husband's, and just random reference books like Becoming a Parent the First Time, or whatever. So I'm not going to count the books that are like reference or my husband's. I'm just going to count mine. Here we have my box set of Throne of Glass. It's mostly empty because I've read all the books up to the last 2. And so this year I've been kind of putting all the books that I've read on a shelf in my office so I can kind of physically see all the physical books that I've read. So that's why those are missing, because I've already read them. I have Stephen King's new release of short stories called You Like It Darker. I'm saving this for Halloween time. I have My Plain Jane, got this probably 5 years ago. Will probably not read this one, so I will probably unhaul it. Same with this one, When Life Gives You Lululemon, so random. Then I have The God of Small Things. This one I was really excited to read, but it is very dense and it was really hard for me to follow and it made me feel stupid. So I was like, maybe another time in my life I will come back to this. Then I have The Martian, which was my husband's. I read Hail Mary, not The Martian. I didn't love Hail Mary, and I know everybody loves Hail Mary, so I don't know if I'll read The Martian. I watched the movie, so I kind of know what happens. Then another one of my husband's book is this biography of the life of Anthony Bourdain, Down and Out in Paradise. I think this one came out when he passed, and I think this one was a little controversial, but I really like Anthony Bourdain, and I liked his book Kinship Confidential, so I do want to read this one. Cloth-bound copy of Little Women. Then I have Lonesome Dove. This one I really, really want to get to. I know I will get to it at some point in my life. It is very thick. I think it's nearly 1,000 pages, but I also, if I remember correctly, this is Stephen King's favorite book of all time. So that's saying a lot, and that man reads a lot. So I really want to get to this one. It's a Western, and I think it's part of a trilogy. Is this the third one? The third book in the trilogy? I don't know. Editor April will put it on the screen somewhere. Really old copy of Jane Eyre. I think this was from like high school. A really random book, Penguin's collection of Japanese short stories. I may just read a few that I'm interested in and then be done with this book. It was kind of a random pickup. And then I have some really cool, like old school pocket books of famous sci-fi books that I got at a thrift store years ago. I have Ender's Game. Look how yellow these pages are. It's a pretty cool copy. And then I have Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And then I have the second one, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. So I do really want to read these ones. I'm excited to kind of read these old versions. The Passage from Justin Cronin. So it's the other big Justin Cronin book that I have of his. I have The Woman Who Run with Wolves. I actually got this at the library book sale for like $1. I know this one's kind of having a resurgence as of late, so I need to make time to read this. I feel like 10 years ago, I was like, I'm going to read the book, and I never did. So this one, it just looks really dense and big and kind of intimidating. So maybe I'll take it in chunks. And then everything else down there is either read or referenced. So let's count my unread. So we're going to have 16 there, but I think I'm probably going to at least unhaul 6 or so of those. So we're at 16. What are we at? 110 at this point? Yeah. And then lastly, I think I just have like maybe 1 or 2 unreads scattered on this side. This is mostly read books. I have Foul Lady Fortune, Chloe Gong, have The Throne of the Fallen, which was a really popular book last year, and it has a really fun, I think, competition game premise, so was excited to get to this one. I still am. Another Kristen Hanna, Home Again. I bought this at the library book sale for really cheap, so I thought I would give it a try. I have the last book in the Scythe series, The Toll. I read the first 2, enjoyed the first one more than the second, and then I think I started reading this one, and I just wasn't in the mood, and I was having a hard time connecting with it, so I didn't get back to it, but I really should finish out this series and read this book. So that was 4 unreads on this side of the shelf. So now let's go to the office and see my unreads there. Okay, so now we are back in my office, and I have a few unreads in here, so I thought I would share those ones. Let's do them. Khaled Hosseini's In the Mountains Echoed. I love Kite Runner and A Thousand Sledded Suns. They are probably 2 of my favorite books. I would say those 2 are probably in my top 25 of all time. And so I think I'm really going to love this one as well. But his books are so heartbreaking, and you have to be in that mindset. So I am really looking forward to this one. I just am saving it. And I also know I'm really going to enjoy it. So I'm also kind of saving it. Everybody loves Piranesi. But the thing is, to me, I grouped Piranesi in with like Circe and Song of Achilles. And I didn't love those books as much as everybody else. So I'm a little worried I might not love this one as much. But I'm hoping I will. So we'll see. And then I have this new release of this year, and it's Martyr. I've heard really, really good things about this one. I think it's historical fiction. Of course, you know, I pre-ordered this and then didn't read it right away. So I have to get to this one this year. The Mortal Instruments box set. I got this at the library book sale. It's a common theme right now. I know it's a really popular series. I've never read Cassandra Clare, so I picked that one up. And then these two books I kind of got for my husband, but I was also kind of interested in them, also from the library book sale. This is The Blind Side. There was the movie The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, and Michael Lewis writes a lot of really interesting sports books. He also wrote Moneyball, which is also a movie, so I have that one. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Phil Knight is the creator of Nike, so I believe this is him kind of creating Nike, if I'm not mistaken. I have some kind of newer unreads here that I picked up. A lot of these were actually in my birthday book haul, which I will link below if you want to watch that. So I'll kind of go through them pretty quickly. I have Jodi Picoult's The Storyteller, Jade City, which I'm really excited to get into that series, Stephen King's Behemoth 11/22/63. My sister loved this book, and I know quite a few people did. It is just such a big book though, so I have to be ready to go with this one. I Am Rome. Then I have Betty, Howl's Moving Castle. I would like to start reading more popular middle grade books and kind of reread some of the ones that I read when I was that age for nostalgia and just to kind of like broaden what I'm reading. So there's that one. And then I have A Little Devil in America, which was the same author as There's Always This Year on Basketball and Ascension that I really enjoyed, or that I read, I think, in April. Mayflies, We Begin at the End, and I know Chris Whitaker's book, All the Colors in the Dark, I believe, which was a new release. I know that one is really, really popular right now because I think it's part of one of the celebrity book clubs and people are loving it. And this book came out, I think, before that one. So I've heard this one is also really good. So I want to read this one before I read the new one. And then lastly, I have When We Lost Our Heads. This one is another one of those historical fictions that I'm very, very excited about. It kind of seems to me kind of like in the same vein of Wolf Hall, kind of like maybe that era. I could be wrong, but I know a lot of people are really loving this book this year, so I really want to read this one this year. Let's count. Do I count all 3 Mortal Instruments as separate? I guess 18. So add that to the grand total. We'll put the grand total up on the screen. So like I said, I have a lot to read, and of course I'm always adding more and more to my TBR, but I think that's what's so fun about being a reader. And you know what? I'm not ashamed. I love to hoard books, and I will always do that, and I will continue to do that because it is something that I enjoy. So thank you so much for watching, and this was my very unaesthetic book tour of my unreads, and I hope you enjoyed, and thanks so much for being here, and I will see you on my next video.